Have you reflected in conversations about how this has all come about?
Yeah, all the time. I met Prince Harry 13 years ago at the side of a swimming pool a few months before the Invictus Games, and he sort of sold exactly that idea about the platform that this would create. Now, the Invictus Games back then were meant to be a one-off. It was just going to be a single Games in London, and then, you know, it would have the life-changing effect on us and we would move on. Obviously, the foundation was then formed, and it, you know, and Harry and I joke about this all the time, it's basically got well out of hand. This thing, which was basically a sports day that we kind of made up, has just got bigger and bigger. The impact that it's having is exactly what we would hoped it would have been, but to be honest, we couldn't really have anticipated the size to which this has grown and the incredible power that it has.
And his continuous association with it and passion for it also gives it more publicity, doesn't it? It draws more attention to it. I mean, what does that mean to you?
Well, I've always said, and Harry always knows this, that these games are not about him. They're about this community, the community he's brought together. You know, as somebody that served in the armed forces, and when I first met him, he was a captain, I was a corporal. You know, that's how our relationship began. But he's always, you know, whenever I've spoken to him, interviewed him, been in interviews with him, you know, he'll always defer to the wounded, injured and sick, to the people who know and have lived this experience. But of course, you know, being the figurehead that he is, you know, having the presence and the platform that he has deeply benefited us. And if I think about it personally, like the thing that he created, the platform that he has completely changed my life. I'll forever be grateful that of all the things he could have done with his power, his influence, his time, he chose to change the life of me and my friends.
Do not put off your TV screen. I know there's lots of viewers, I think, all right, Trey's speaking, let's mute it. No. Honestly, just hear me out, right? I actually think it's time that we forgive Prince Harry. It's time that we welcome him back into the fold and that we restore his royal duties and his privileges. Now, hear me out. I know you guys would be upset, maybe even angry, you know, at the Oprah interview and obviously at his book, Spare. And some of you are probably quite happy that his life in the States didn't quite turn out the way that he would have liked. But let me tell you a story, and it's the biblical story of the prodigal son. Perhaps we as a nation need to forgive and let bygones be bygones and welcome Harry home. See, because when you scrape away absolutely everything, he's someone's son, someone's brother, and all families have their ups and downs. Few of us would last a day in that royal petri dish, let alone an entire lifetime. Who knows what we would say, what we would do, and how we would act as a result. You know, we speak a lot about British values. We speak about Christian values. Well, those values include forgiveness, kindness, and a shot at redemption. I'm not saying that we should forget everything that happened with his family, with potentially bringing down the royal institution. But I'm saying perhaps, guys, perhaps it's time that we forgive Harry and welcome him home.
Let's talk about this massive joke playing out on the airwaves right now. I've watched GB News and they're seriously sitting there debating whether Prince Harry should be forgiven. Forgiven? Forgiven for what exactly? Hold on, let's back up. Did the man commit a federal crime? Did he rob a bank? No! He literally just sat down and told his side of the story. He dropped Spare, did a couple of interviews, put out a documentary and said, hey, this was my life and it was wild. Since when did speaking your own truth become a sin you need to beg absolution for? It's hilarious because the tide is turning and you can smell the panic. A minute ago, the media was trying to completely cancel him. Now, they're stumbling over themselves trying to figure out how to invite him back to the family dinner. Let's keep it real for a second. Look at what's happening on the ground. Regular people look at this and see right through the games. If you've ever had a toxic job or a messy family dynamic where you finally stood up, packed your bags and walked out, you know exactly what Harry did. You don't apologise for escaping a bad situation. The British media thought they could freeze him out, but now they realise the palace is looking a little empty and a lot boring without that Sussex energy. They don't want to forgive Harry, they want his star power back. But Harry is out in California living his best life, and honestly, he doesn't owe a single soul an apology. Let's look at the absolute comedy of this sudden U-turn. For years, these talking heads were screaming on TV that Harry was done, finished, pack it up, he's never coming back, strip the titles, lock the gates. And now, suddenly they're on screen looking all soft, talking about healing and reconciliation. Give me a break. Why the sudden change of heart? It's not because they suddenly found religion or grew a conscience. It's because of the numbers, plain and simple. They finally looked at the math and realised Harry is the only one pulling the views. Let's be real, when Harry walks into a room, everybody stops and looks. The guy is a walking headline machine. When he's not there, the royal news cycle is about as exciting as watching paint dry. The media tried to ice him out, but they accidentally iced themselves out of the only drama people actually care about. Regular folks see right through this flip-flop. It's like that ex who blocks your number, talks trash about you to all their friends, and then a year later sends that desperate, "Hey, you up?" text at 2 a.m. because their new life is a total snooze fest. The British establishment realised that without Harry's global flavour and charisma, the whole operation looks incredibly stale. They need that Sussex clout to keep the lights on, but Harry's already checked out of the hotel. Now, let's talk about the absolute mic drop moment from Harry's UK trip. It didn't happen on a palace balcony, and it sure didn't come from some stiff royal commentator wearing a bad suit. It came from the people actually on the ground. While the talking heads on TV were busy crying about interviews and memoirs, a real hero named JJ Chalmers stepped up to the microphone. He didn't care about palace gossip or family drama. He talked straight facts about the Invictus Games. He looked right at the cameras and basically said, "Listen, Harry changed my entire life and saved my friends." Boom. How do you argue with that? Let's look at the contrast here because it is pure comedy. On one side, you've got these bitter critics sitting in air-conditioned TV studios crying about what Harry wrote on page 200 of Spare. On the other side, you've got actual combat veterans talking about finding hope, getting their purpose back, and literally surviving because of what Harry built. One side is just noise and public relations, the other side is real, tangible, life-saving results. On a street level, regular people know exactly who to believe. We don't listen to the haters who get paid to complain. We listen to the people who are actually in the trenches. You can't spin a real-life transformation. JJ Chalmers wasn't trying to win a media war, he was just telling the truth about what Harry did for him. The loudest voices out there aren't the ones sitting on cable news channels, they're the people whose lives Harry actually changed. And honestly, that's why the critics have already lost.
Now, let's talk about the biggest delusion the British media is trying to sell. This idea that Harry needs the royal badge to matter. They act like the man is sitting out in California twiddling his thumbs, staring at his phone waiting for his old job back. Please. Harry didn't just leave the building, he leveled up. Look at the facts. The man is out here running the Invictus Games, dropping global projects and doing actual hands-on charity work that changes lives on the ground. He isn't just standing around in a fancy uniform, cutting ribbons for a grocery store opening. He's built a whole empire with Meghan and the kids in California completely on his own terms. Prince Harry proved something that terrifies the palace. You don't need their golden crown to have massive global influence. Regular people get this. It's like when a star player leaves a legendary sports team because the management is toxic, signs a massive contract somewhere else, and starts winning championships on their own. Suddenly, the old team is losing games, the stadium is empty, and they're begging the player to come back and save their season. The royal family thought they were the ones giving Harry his value. Turns out, he was the one bringing the flavour to the family business. He has completely broken free of the institution, so why on earth would he step backward into a system he already outgrew? He's thriving, he's independent, and he's doing just fine without them. Let's talk about the absolute nerve of people demanding an apology from Harry and Meghan. They want them to say sorry? For what? For surviving? Let's be completely real, and we are not afraid to say it out loud. The royal family treated them like trash. They threw Meghan to the wolves, let the UK tabloids rip her to shreds every single day, and then got mad when Harry actually stood up like a real man to protect his wife and kids. Harry didn't start a war just to be messy. The man explicitly said he wanted accountability and real change. But the palace's vibe has always been, shut up, take the abuse and smile for the cameras. Sorry, but calling out a toxic situation isn't a betrayal, it's self-defense. On a street level, regular people know exactly how this goes. This is like having a family that treats you like an outcast, talks garbage behind your back, acts totally fake to your face, and then the minute you speak up and walk away, you're labelled the bad guy. They want Harry to come crawling back and apologise just for telling the truth about how they treated him. If there's ever going to be a real conversation about fixing this, the apology needs to flow the other way. The palace needs to look in the mirror and own up to their own mess. Expecting Harry and Meghan to say sorry for sharing their painful experiences is pure comedy. They don't owe a single soul an apology, period. Now, let's talk about Harry's recent trip back to the UK because it exposed the biggest open secret in the entire country. The media spent months trying to convince everyone that Harry was irrelevant, that nobody cared, and that the UK had moved on. But the minute his plane touched down, complete and total meltdown in the press rooms. The cameras couldn't look away. He was on the ground doing real work, hanging out with veterans for the Invictus Games countdown, visiting sick kids, and lighting up every room he walked into. And what was the UK media doing? They completely ignored what William and Kate were up to and hyper-focused entirely on Harry. They tracked his every move, argued about where he was sleeping, and analysed his outfit choices. Love him or hate him, everybody was glued to the screen. Prince Harry is the main event, and the press knows it. It's like when a legendary player walks back into their old stadium wearing an away jersey. The fans might boo, the owners might look mad, but absolutely nobody is looking at the bench. They are watching the star. The UK media loves to pretend they've moved on, but their actual behaviour proves they are completely hooked on his energy. He doesn't need to carry out official royal duties to hold the spotlight. He is the spotlight. Let's unravel the biggest lack of imagination coming out of these TV studios. These commentators think there are only two choices on the menu. Either Harry stays exiled forever, or he puts on the uniform, picks up the scissors, and goes back to cutting ribbons full time. Like, hello, wake up. There is a whole world outside that palace bubble. Harry and Meghan have already built an entire universe in California. They've got their own careers, their own projects, and their own peace. If Harry decides to fix things with his dad or his brother down the line, that's standard family business. It does not mean he has to sign a new employment contract with the firm. You can grab a coffee with your dad without having to go back to working at his corner store. If you leave a toxic family business, build your own massive successful brand, and finally get your peace of mind, you don't go back to punch in their time card just because they say they miss you. You stay independent. Look at the Invictus Games. That's Harry's true lane. It's pure, unfiltered impact for wounded veterans, built from the ground up, and it has absolutely nothing to do with palace politics. He doesn't need a royal stamp of approval to do good in the world. Let's wrap this up with the absolute truth. Prince Harry didn't spend years fighting the press, packing up his life, and building a completely new empire in California just to take a massive step backwards. He's already proven to the entire world that he can serve communities, uplift veterans with Invictus, and raise his beautiful family strictly on his own terms. If healing ever happens behind closed doors, great, that's a family choosing to fix their bond. But let's make one thing crystal clear. It should never happen because anyone thinks Harry needs to go back to royal duties to prove his worth. He's already won. Thank you all for watching. I am your host, Miles. Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Do you think the media needs to finally pack it up and let the man live? Smack that like button, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video.